Hi everyone, it's Craig Campbell with another look at the 1956 Topps cards. It's my favorite set, and I'm currently working on this set. I've had this card here of Carlos Paula for quite a while. It's a common card, but I really enjoy the action photo again of the 1956 set. You can see Carlos sliding into second base. It appears that the catcher or the fielder is starting to close his glove, so possibly he has the ball in the glove. And you can see that Carlos is not quite on the bag, but I also like you can see the little dust by his shoe of the dirt being kicked up. There's such fine detail in these 1956 cards. They're just really so interesting to look at and just to study the fine points of it. And on the back, Carlos is listed as 6'3", 195 pounds, born in Havana, Cuba, in November of 1928, and it's card number 4 of the 1956 set. Carlos had a card also in the 1955 top set, so the 55 and the 56 top sets are his only cards. And Carlos has an interesting biography and just kind of a groundbreaking career, even though he played only for not many games in the major leagues. Cuban outfielder Carlos Paula parlayed an all-star tour in the United States into a full-time minor league role in the early 1950s. With his chiseled frame and stylish flair, he became the man who integrated the Washington Senators on September 6th of 1954, making the Senators the 12th of the original 16 major league teams to do so. However, dogged by perceptions of suspect fielding, Paula never fulfilled his promise. Eventually, he was jailed by revolutionary forces back in his homeland, but returned to live a largely anonymous life in Florida, mainly in Miami. In 1950, Carlos had joined the Havana Cuban Stars in an American barnstorming tour. In late June, the Stars, coming off their best winter season in history of Cuba, faced the New York Black Yankees managed by Marvin Baker. They later battled the Omaha Rockets, a minor league team affiliate of the Negro League, Kansas City Monarchs, which was managed by James Cool Papa Bell. Heading into 1952, it was reported in March that Paula and 3 of the Cuban Star teammates had all been signed by a minor league team in Duluth. By late April, Charlie Paul, is what they called him, had signed with the Decatur, Illinois Commodores of the Class D Mississippi-Ohio Valley League. They were quite enthused about Paul because of his 6'4", a Negro from Cuba. He was the first one to belt one over the center field wall. Paul was the opening day left fielder and cleanup hitter for the Commies, is what they called them, who won the league championship. Paula hit .334 and led the team with 152 hits, and the entire league with 16 triples. At the turn of 1954, Paula, the cocky Cuban Negro, was sold to the Washington Senators. Paula was signed by the team's longtime super scout in Cuba, Papa Joe Cambria, who provided the Senators a rich pipeline of talent from the island. Cambria had touted Paula as the player who could do everything well enough to be in the majors. During the Senator spring training, Paula and another player named Skull were being thought of as the best bets to be the first Negro players to crack the roster, with Skull having the inside track. Skull stood just 5'6", in contrast to Paula, who was 6'3" and 195 pounds, and was built like a blacksmith. Sports writer Shirley Povich, contributing to the Sporting News, wrote that Paula has the build and the face of an old heavyweight of the trail horse type, but also that he speaks better English than most of the Cubans. Paula became the first Negro ever to crash a Washington lineup on March 8th when he pinch hit, fouling out to opposing pitcher Earl Batty with the bases loaded. Carlos was soon labeled potentially as the Senators' best rookie in years. Paula's third exhibition game was also the spring debut of Alston Howard, the first Negro ever to play with the New York Yankees. Paula was labeled as uncertain in the field, but as one coach noted, that's the least of our worries. If he keeps hitting, we can teach him to field. By mid-March of that year, the Senators were hitting less than 200 in training camp, and Paul was posting a good 267 average, but still with a week left, it seemed that Skull would be the player kept by the Senators, mainly as a defensive replacement. Even the baseball card company Topps thought so, and included Skull, but not Carlos Paula, in their upcoming 1954 set. It's quite interesting because Skull never did appear in a Major League Baseball game. In 1954, as the Senators floundered and Paula languished in Charlotte, where he had blasted a 559-foot home run, and he had led the Sally League with 33 RBIs, two more than 18-year-old rookie Frank Robinson. And that was just as the month had ended in the month of May. Heading into June, Paul had a 13-game hitting streak for the 7th place Hornets. Meanwhile, the parent team, the Senators, were 10.5 back and were mired in 5th place. Even with Paula boasting a .352 average and 9 home runs and 43 RBIs in June, Senators Vice President Calvin Griffith was leery of promoting Paula. Paula batted .309 with 14 home runs and 83 RBIs with 57 extra base hits, and he was finally promoted to the Senators on September 2nd. With Washington now 39 games out of first place, Carlos Paula became baseball's first black senator, making his debut on September 6th in the same Griffith Stadium that had previously housed the Homestead Grays, the Washington Pilots, the Washington Black Senators, and the Washington Elite Giants. Paula collected a double and a single in 9 at-bats as a starting left fielder in both games of a doubleheader against the 7th place Philadelphia Athletics. Paula played in 9 games for the Senators in September of 1954, hitting .167. In 1955, the Senators had hired Charlie Dressen to be their new manager, and Clark Griffith had commented about Carlos Paula, "The big galoot could be a good player for us with a little more preparation." And another consideration to keeping him on the team was the potential gate attraction. With a colored population of nearly 400,000, Griffith yearned for the day to give the fans of Washington, D.C. a standout colored player. Paula broke camp with the Senators, but was mainly used as a pinch hitter for the first month. In mid-May, he replaced the slumping Roy Sievers in left field. On September 2nd of that year, Paula had broken up New York Yankees' Whitey Ford's no-hit bid with a 7th-inning single. And during a 22-game stretch in August and September, Paula hit .450 with 36 hits, raising his average to .326. A late-season slump, however, brought his season-ending average to just below 300 at .299, good for second place on the team to Mickey Vernon. But unfortunately, he also ended the year with the lowest fielding percentage among American League outfielders by a considerable margin. Paula and Elston Howard were among those who made the Sporting News all-rookie team for 1955. In the middle of the Senators' 1956 spring training, Paula was forced to return to Cuba to care for his mother, who had suffered a heart attack. Despite the circumstances, the team threatened to fine him when he did not return when expected. He did not break camp with Washington. Instead, he had been optioned to the Denver Bears of the American Association. He was recalled to Washington in mid-May after hitting .375 with 6 home runs in 22 games for the Bears. Paula belted a pinch hit 3-run home run on June 11th against Kansas City. This would be his last round tripper in the major leagues. He hit just .183 in 33 games for Washington and was sent back to the Louisville Colonels of the American Association. He never again played in the big leagues. Paula did return to the Senators spring training in 1957, but he was optioned to the Milwaukee Millers. And then he was back with the Senators again in 1958. But they cut ties with him in the spring, selling him to the Sacramento Salons of the Pacific Coast League. Another winner in Cuban ball followed, and he played for the Mexico City Tigers. But in January of 1960, Paula was jailed in Havana on charges of assaulting a Fidel Castro policeman. Carlos Paula's brother, known as the Black Hand during the Batista regime, was executed in 1959 when Castro forces assumed power. Eventually, Carlos was released, and then he returned back to the Mexico City Tigers. Paula returned to Cuba, but his whereabouts remained a mystery throughout the 1960s. However, in 1970, Paula escaped Cuba, settling in the Miami area. There's little known about his life in Miami. He was apparently a very private man. Even his fellow Cuban ball players, a close-knit community, did not have much knowledge. One of them, an infielder, Miguel Mike de la Hoz, remembered Paula as always a happy man who liked to look good and have a good time, telling jokes and singing. He always had his shoes shined, and he always got along with everyone. He was a very good man. Carlos Paula died on April 25th in Miami, Florida, at the age of 55. Carlos, who's pictured here sliding in second base in this very, very nice smile, is an important man with the Washington Senators, breaking the color barrier for the Senators. And he played in 157 games in the major leagues. He batted .271. He had 9 home runs with 60 RBI. And he scored 44 runs. And his 2 baseball cards were issued in 1955, and this one here in 1956. And Carlos Paula may be in the dustbin of common cards for many, many collectors. But I hope this little spotlight on Carlos has reflected that he was more than just a baseball player. And coming from Cuba and breaking the color barrier in Washington with the Senators, and then going back and just the difficulties of the Castro regime for him, which is something that so many of us no longer remember because it's been quite a while ago. But for Carlos Paula, he made it to the big time. He made it to the big show. And even though he's in our commons piles and nobody really takes his cards and gets them graded, and there's not many people looking for a Carlos Paula, unless they're just trying to build a set like I am with the 56 tops. But Carlos Paula was a ball player, and he had a decent career. And so I hope that this little spotlight on him has helped and has informed some people. And you found some interesting tidbits in here, that he broke up Whitey Ford's no-hitter, that he was even called up with the Senators at the same time as Harmon Killebrew. And so he shares some relational things with some Hall of Fame players. And guys, I hope you enjoy this look at the 1956 set. Thanks for listening and watching. If you like it, please leave a comment, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. It sure is appreciated.